Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody. So we'll start our session by dedicating it to His Divine Grace, C.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So today we have, sorry for the error, reached the journey of chapter 5, right? Which is Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. So this chapter has 29 verses, so it is comparatively a very small chapter. And Krishna willing, we target it to complete in 2 sessions, in this week and next week's session. Now, this chapter, like the title says, Karma Yoga in Krishna Consciousness, it is further to the chapter 3, which is Karma Yoga, right? And we'll see why, again, we are talking about Karma Yoga, which is Nishkama. Now, just background on the flow we have been going through the chapters, right? So chapter 2, we learned mainly about our identity, right? That we are, the first lesson which Krishna taught there was, we are not this body, but we are soul, right? And also that, our constitutional position is nothing but to serve Krishna. So that chapter really, the message, key message there was our identity. Yeah? Now, chapter 3 was Karma Yoga. And it was mainly, it gave us the flavor of what is our duty, right? It talked about our primary duty, right? And Krishna, mentioned sacrifice. Yes, we learned the important shloka as well. Yagnarthat karmano. Yeah, loko yam karma bandhana, tardatam karma konteya mukta sandasamacha. Right? By performing sacrifice, we will get happiness and liberation. Right? So this chapter mainly talked about our duty. We also learned about the cycle, right? Our main primary duty, as how we have to work in cooperation with demigods and all of them. Now, the end of chapter 3. We spoke about our greatest enemy, which was lust, right? And Krishna also in the end said that this lust can be overcome by transcendental knowledge. So chapter 4 mainly spoke about transcendental knowledge, right? What is that transcendental knowledge? And we learned in detail about that. Now we are in chapter 5, right? So when we have understood what our identity is, what is our primary duty, and the transcendental knowledge, it eventually gives us the result, which is peace. And chapter 5 talks about that, right? The last shloka we have repeated several times, in our sessions. Bhokta Ram Yagnita Prasam Sarva Loka Maheshwara Suruda Sarva Bhutanam Yatva Mam Shantam Vachati. So this is the last verse of this chapter. So with this said, we'll move further. So chapter 5 is divided into 4 parts for our convenience. And today we'll be covering the first 3 parts. That is shloka 1 to 16. Now, like chapter 3, chapter 5 also starts with Arjuna's confusion. Okay. Arjuna again got confused with, 2 verses, which were the last verses of chapter 4. And these 2 verses to him sounded contradictory. Okay. So he again lands up in confusion and he asks Krishna, tell me what is, the most beneficial for me, for him. Now, chapter 3 also we saw, right? It started with one shloka which Arjuna picked up, because Arjuna had the, he had the thought process to renounce, right? Since the start. So he was looking, for things which, which makes him, right? Put across Krishna, that he will. So in chapter 2, we saw that verse, Dure nahi avaram karma. That was the verse where Arjuna got confused. Right? And he starts the chapter 3 by asking the same question. Tell me which is, good renunciation or performing the work. Now, why? Because we learned that word avaram karma, which is forbidden action, he mistook it that there was a difference in understanding that, right? Because he thought fighting the war would be a avaram karma, right? Whereas Krishna was telling him, you have to perform your duty, right? If you don't perform your duty, that will be avaram karma. So if he doesn't fight the war, that will be an avaram karma. Right? So now chapter 5 starts with similar verses, not similar, but similar confusion what Arjuna had, yeah? And we'll go through those two seed verses, of chapter 5, which are coming from chapter 4. Now, in this chapter, there are some words, like in, any language, I think English, we see, right? There are certain words which, when used in a sentence, makes a different meaning. Whereas when it's used in a different context, it might mean something else. So similarly, in Sanskrit, we will see throughout as we move into, the second part of Bhakti Yoga, right? The middle part, the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad-Gita, and further as well, we'll see that there are certain terminologies which are used, but their context being used, it means different at different time points. So to understand this chapter, easy, to make it sensible for us, these are some of the words, which I would like to bring it forward, so that when these come during the chapter, it makes, we understand what it means. Now, karma. So karma is what we learned, that it is just not the action, may it be good or bad. It is also reaction. So when we talk about karma, it is both action and reaction, right? We learned this in the 3rd chapter. Now, then in this chapter also, karma means, both. Okay. Now, the word sannyasa, right? In this chapter, sannyasa is used to indicate karma sannyasa, which means karma sannyasa, right? Karma means work, sannyasa means renunciation, right? So karma sannyasa means renunciation, that is giving up the work, right? Now, we have to be careful on two aspects. One is karma sannyasa and one is karma phala sannyasa. Okay, so that we have a clear understanding for us. Karma sannyasa refers to renunciation of work, giving up work. Whereas karma phala sannyasa means renunciation of, not the work, but the fruits, karma phala, fruits of the work. Okay, and so further, the word yoga in this chapter, it's used in several places. And this is used to indicate karma yoga. Karma yoga means Nishkama karma yoga. Yeah? That is working with devotion without attachment to the results. Yeah, no attachment to results. No attachment to karma phala. Right? Then there is a term called as yoga yukta. This is also used, and karma yogi. Now both means the same. Yeah, where the person, yoga yukta is the person who is engaged in karma yoga, right? In Nishkama karma yoga. And karma yogi is also the person who is engaged in performing Nishkama. And then there is opposite of that, which is ayoga or ayukta. Yeah, it means that he's a fruitive worker, basically. Yeah, one who is not engaged in karma. So, any questions around this before I proceed? Okay, I take that as a no. Further, so this was the verse which confused Arjuna. Right? Now, this was the 41st and the last verse of 4th chapter, 42nd. Right? Now, let's go through this verse again, because it's important for us to understand where exactly did Arjuna get confused. Okay, so 41st shloka, it says yoga sannyasta karmana, yeah, jnana sanchina sannyas, atmavantam na karmani nibadnati dhananjaya. Right? So yoga sannyasta karma. So Krishna is saying yoga means karma yoga, right? Devotional service. Performing in devotional service, sannyasta karma, renounce sannyas, renounce the karmana, that is fruits of the actions, that is results of the action. So what is Krishna telling him here? In devotional, performing devotional service, renounce the fruits of the actions. Jnana sanchina sanyasam. So where through jnana, through the knowledge, sanchina sanyasam, sanyas, sorry, shamshaya. Samshaya means doubts, right? Jnana sanchina samshaya. So through knowledge, through the sword of knowledge, it will clarify all your doubts. It will destroy all your doubts. Atmavantam na karmani. Right? The person who is situated inside. Yeah? Na karmani nibadhanti dhananjay. Na karmani nibadhanti means he will not get, bonded. Nibadhanti. He will not get bonded. Yeah. So bounded by the what? Reactions of God. So this is what Krishna was trying to say, right? But when Arjuna again heard the word sannyas, he was thinking to renounce. Okay. And then Krishna says 42nd verse. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. So stand up and fight, he says. So Arjuna is finding these two verses contradictory because first verse he took it as, take up sannyas, renounce everything. And second verse, Krishna again says, stand up and fight. And that's where Arjuna is getting confused. Okay. So it is important to understand these two. And that's why it's, and the 5th chapter starts with the first shloka where it clarifies, Arjuna asks this question that on one hand, you're saying, give up everything. On the other hand, you're saying stand up and fight. Krishna, you are confusing me. Okay. So Krishna will explain what exactly he meant, which we explained, right? Yoga sanyasta karmanam means through performing devotional service, through performing the Nishkama yoga, renounce the karmanam, which is the fruits of action. Okay. So let's move to now the first shloka. Hari Krishna ji, will you be able to read it?
Yeah, yes, Mataji. Arjuna Uvacha Sanyasam Karmanam Krishna Punar Yogam Cha Samshashi Yaha Cherya Itayor Ekam Tanme Bruhi Su Nishchitam. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then again you recommended work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which one of two is more beneficial?" Bhagavad-Gita 4.1. This is 5.1.
Thank you. Thank you.
So here, can you all hear me?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you. So here, Arjuna Vacha. So Arjuna is asking the question right here. He's saying that Sanyasam Karmanam Krishna. You are asking me to renounce everything. Punar Yogam cha Shamchashi. Again, you're talking perform the work. Yashreya etayor. Now, this word Shreya is very important here. And we'll talk a bit more about this word in our next slide. Yeah. So what does Shreya mean? Shreya means what is most beneficial for me. Tan me bruhi su nishchitam. Please tell me, definitely what is most beneficial for me. That's what he's saying. Yeah. So it's important to note here that Arjuna again got confused and he's again asking the question. He's not getting frustrated, right? He's still inquiring, right? That surrender, that And same with Krishna. Krishna is not losing the patience. Both of them are not losing patience. And we'll see how beautifully Krishna explains to Arjuna, what exactly he should be doing and what is better for him. Because here the question from Arjuna is, what is most beneficial for me? You know, so we should have a similar approach. When it comes to learning anything, you know, we need to have that level of patience. The person who is explaining it and the person who is receiving it as well. It's very important. Yeah. So now we were talking about this word Shreya, right? Now, this word has actually come before in a shloka, which we are all recited also. It was, I don't know, does anyone remember where we got this verse? One of the Sanskrit verses, this word. We learned the shloka 2.7, which was Karpanya dosho pahata svabhava. Prashyami tam dharma sammuda cheta. Yashreya syan. Nishitam bruhitam me. Shishyaste aham shadi mam tamam prapamma. So this was the shloka when Arjuna surrendered to Krishna. There also he asked, tell me, Krishna, what is, I'm getting confused. My hand is shivering, my whole body is quivering. So tell me, what should I do? And he surrenders to Krishna. And and there also he's asking him, what is beneficial for me? Tell me. So we had this word in 2.7, and then again we had this in 3.2, in one of the verses where again Arjuna asks, tell me, where he asks the questions in third, starting of third chapter, he starts with his confusion, right? There also he says, Krishna, tell me what is, more beneficial for me. And now again we see in the first shloka of fifth chapter, it's the same line. Yeah. Now, all of these talk about what word we are highlighting here is Shreya. Yeah. What is ultimately beneficial for me? Now, opposite of Shreya, there is a term called as Preya. It is different to that. Now, what are these two difference? So, Shreya is something which is long-term beneficial, and Preya is which is short-term benefits. Yeah. So Arjuna is very, he's very intelligent. He's a devotee, right? So he doesn't want to he wants to know what is ultimately for his goal of his, life. What is it which is most beneficial out of these two? He wants to know because he knows the goal of the life, right? The goal is to go back to Krishna. So what is more beneficial for him, right? So this is like, this can be interpreted by an anecdotal story. This is not a true story, but it's an anecdotal. Now, what do we see here in the picture?
An island.
Yes, right. So we see an island, right? It looks deserted from far, right? Now there's a story of a person who was actually traveling, over the sea, and he got drowned. He fell off into into the water, and somehow he got separated from the travelers, and in the end he got stranded in this island. He somehow came close to the island, and he was alone. And he was so, obviously he was worried, and suddenly he sees that, okay, he's alive and he's pretty okay. And then then when he turns and he looks at, he sees that there are nobody around. There is nobody around. And then suddenly he sees that there are few people who are started approaching him. Some people started coming towards him, and we can imagine who these people are. Can you tell me who these might be in the island?
Tribals.
Yes, right. So tribal people, right? So they started approaching him, and he really got scared that, oh, I'm going to lose my life, and all of that. So, um, and then he saw that they took him within the island, and once they went him, he could start realizing that these tribal people are actually taking good care of him. They are actually treating him so nicely. and they are taking care of all his needs, and really listening to whatever he's saying and all of that. And they, it's like they made him the king of that island. you know. Now, it kept, he started thinking, he started using his intelligence, right? So that, well, why are they treating me so well? So after certain time, when he slowly, knew them and he learned their language, he checked with one of them, that, um, why do you, why, how come you have made me the king, and, you're taking such a good care of me? What is it about? And then he gets to know from the person that this is their island, rule, that any person who comes, they really treat him well, they make him the king. And and after they serve him to their best, whatever he asks for a duration of 5 years. And after 5 years, they leave him, without food, without clothing, without anything, into another island, stranded there alone. So that's how they do it. So this person, said, wow, and he was like, so you do it, consistently with any person you get on board? And he was like, yes. And then the tribal person told him, in fact, in all these years, you are the first person to ask this question. Otherwise, nobody, asked that question. They fully enjoyed, and then they, eventually were left stranded there. So this person, started thinking, well, they have this plan already in place, that's their rule, and they are going to do it, and he's alone. So he used his intelligence, and he said that, okay, so I'm your king, you listen to me for everything, you take my orders, right? So I order you to go to the close by island and set up, a living there, like construct house, and have the living there, food availability, make all these things set up there, and then come back. So these people had to go and do it and follow the orders. And what did this person do? Can somebody say? What did he do? What planning? How has this plan helped him?
After 5 years, he will go and settle there.
Yes, so he will not be alone and starving, right? So he made his future plan, right? Using his intelligence, he made his future bright, right? It's like, that's the difference, he was Shreya, he was thinking long term, not prayer, like others thought, just short term benefit. Oh, I'm getting all the luxury, I have this, let me just utilize it and not worry about, the long term, right? This person inquired the right thing, and he thought about his long term thing, not short term, right? So this thought process is more towards our transcendental goal, which is ultimate goal, long term goal, not a transient way, right? Which is shortcoming. So same is with us, we have to learn, and that's what Arjuna is asking again and again. We saw, 3 shlokas consistently in just 5 chapters, where he kept asking that, tell me what's most beneficial for me, right? So same should be with us. We have to learn this quality, that we should inquire the right questions, the purpose and the goal of our life. Why is this life given? What is the purpose of it? And think and plan and start acting on our long-term goal. And our long-term goal, which is our ultimate goal, what is that? To go back to Krishna, right? To get that spiritual bliss. And not just a short term that, okay, I let me, work, continuously and day and night and strive, and so that I can get, this house, this property, this car, maybe any luxury. So that is not, and that's why, this example, this Shreya and prayer, our thought process has to be Shreya, not prayer. That's why, please remember this example, so that every time we hear the word Shreya, we correlate, what it exactly means, right? What should our thought process be? Our thought process should be like this person, to link long term, right? To think long term. Okay. So with that, we will move to shloka 2 to 6, which is the second part of our 3 parts, which we are going to cover today. It is karma yoga is equal to, but easier than sannyasa. Yeah. That's what Krishna will answer to Arjuna now. Yeah. Now let's see. So Kavyaji, will you be able to read this?
Yes, Mataji. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Sannyasah Karm Yogesha Nishreyas Karavubhav
Mhm.
Teostu Karma Sannyasa Karma Yoga Vishishyate. The personality of Godhead replied, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation, but of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work.
Thank
Spirit of renunciation in work, sannyasa in karma, but not renunciation of work, sannyasa of karma.
Right.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So Krishna is answering now, right? Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Sannyasah karma yogascha. Yeah. What is he saying? Sannyasa means renunciation of work, karma yogascha, work and devotion, right? Nishreyasa karav ubhav. Nishreyasa karav means leading to the path of liberation, right? Ubhav, both lead to the path of liberation. That's what Krishna is saying. You know? Tayostu karma sannyasat. So tayo means of the two. Tayostu means but of the two, karma sannyasat. In comparison to the renunciation of fruitive work. Karma yogo vishishyate. Karma yoga is vishish, means better. It's upper hand. Right? That's what Krishna is saying. The renunciation of work and work in devotion. Both lead us to liberation. And we have learned this, right, in yoga ladder, where we had the karma yoga ladder, and then comes jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, bhakti yoga, right? And each of these ladder, the ultimate goal is the same. Both can take us to Krishna, right? But what Krishna is saying here is that working in karma yoga, which is Nishkam karma yoga or devotional service, it is better than renunciation of work, right? In the end, that is what Krishna is concluding, that Nishkam karma yoga, out of Nishkam karma yoga and renunciation, which is karma sannyasa. Yeah, Krishna is highlighting that of the two, Nishkam karma yoga is better. Right now, there are two different things here. That's what I was telling in the start, right? Spirit of renunciation in work is sannyasa in karma. That is how devotional service should be, right? That we should have the spirit of renunciation in our work. Renunciation from what? From the results of the work. So in our work, what we are doing, we should have that sannyasa, thought process for the karma phala, yeah, which are the results of the work. Rather than, so Krishna is saying, do this, but not renunciation of work itself, which is sannyas of karma only, karma sannyas. Renounce the work itself. We learned in third chapter very clearly where Krishna explains that inactivity is not, our original nature. Our soul can never be inactive, nor in this material world, nor in spiritual world, right? It cannot be. Yeah? Now, when Krishna is asking Arjuna to perform Nishkam Karma Yoga, yeah, it's clear here, right? That he's asking Arjuna to perform work, but have renunciation towards the results of the work. So perform work in the attitude of renunciation, right? So when Krishna is asking Arjuna to perform Nishkam Karma Yoga, it means, he has to work and not renounce, right? Then now Arjuna is thinking, Arjuna is, will ask how a person who is doing work, cannot be attached. how can doing work, performing work can lead to liberation? Because when somebody works, there are reactions, right? For any action, there is a reaction. That's what we think, right? So Arjuna is asking, by working, how can one can lead to liberation? Yeah. So let's see now what Krishna says. So how does work lead to liberation? That's what Arjuna is asking, right? Now, Reshmaji, will you be able to read this?
Yes, Mataji. ज्ञेयः स नित्यसन्न्यासी यो न द्वेष्टि न काङ्क्षति निर्द्वेन्द्वो हि महाबाहो सुखं बन्धात् प्रमुच्यते. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities, known to be always renowned. Such person, free from all duties, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated, O mighty armed Arjuna.
Thank you.
Bhagavad-Gita 5.0.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
So now Krishna is giving here a kind of solution, right? Right? That there is a way that you can perform work and still get liberated. And this is the shloka where he says, yeah. Now, one who neither hates nor desires, no two extremes, yeah, the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. So that neutrality, that equipoised, equilibrium, Krishna is asking for the person who acts in equilibrium, neither hates something nor desires something, when it comes to the fruits of what he does. Yeah? Such a person free from all dualities, happiness, sadness, winter, summer, we saw this before in second chapter as well, free from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated. We also learned that such people, we learned before, right, that it's not that liberation can be got just after death. you know Pure devotees are liberated within, as they're living itself within the same body, right? So Krishna is highlighting here, anything, it's our thought process, right? In our day-to-day life, anything we do, we either have it in our mindset, I hate to do this, or I don't like to do this, I like to do this. If we like, we do it, and if we don't, we don't. And if somebody is doing something also, we have our own and analogies that, okay, this person did not do this right, this, it didn't have this way. So our thought process is always within ourselves, surrounding ourselves, right? So this kind of liberation, right, which is by performing work and still we can get liberated. How can that be achieved? This is only possible when we are not attached to anything. We have to understand that factually, when this thought process comes, it will only come when we have a clear understanding that factually nothing belongs to anyone. Does anything, around us, we really think belongs to us and we take it back? No. So if nothing technically belongs to us, then where is the question of renunciating something or leaving something, right? When we get something, a devotee will have this, such a person, this is a person who is yoga yukta, right? A person who is performing, who is a karma yogi, performing Nishkama karma yoga, right? This person can also be liberated by doing the work. That's what Krishna is saying, right? So one should factually understand, that's why it's highlighted here, that nothing actually belongs to us, right? Anything we get, the thought process of a devotee is, anything we get, it is out of Krishna's mercy. And when we don't get something, we should not, we should think it as that this is because of our past karmas, right? It's done because of our past karmas. And this thought process would actually allow us to reach the stage. Yeah. A yoga yukta takes it that way, a karma yogi, that if he gets something, it is out of utter mercy of Krishna. But when they don't get something, it is only because of their past. And rather, Krishna is being more merciful. Something worse had to happen, but it only, because of Krishna's mercy, only little happened, and we got away with that. It's like we discussed the example, right? We were, maybe due to face a severe accident, but it's just a small scratch. Due to Krishna's mercy, we come off that. This concept, of one should understand that factually nothing belongs to anyone, right? We can correlate it with one of the stories we gave in 9 sessions. It is quite long, but we had a session where it was like um, a short story when a friend comes to another friend and he lends him some money, right? And asks him saying, keep this, I'm going for travel, and when I come back, I'll take it away from you, right? Now, when the friend comes back and takes the money back, the other friend doesn't feel bad, because the other friend always had the mindset that this thing never belonged to me, right? It belonged to somebody else. And that's why he's not feeling bad, he's not affected, he's not undergoing that duality, right? Because he always knew it is going to go one day, right? Similarly, we learned also that everything is around us is Krishna's, right? So what are we renunciating? Everything is his. This brain, this mouth, what I'm talking with the ears, the eyes, what we are taking this, attending this class with, it's everything is given by Krishna, right? Our luxuries, whatever we have in day-to-day life, everything is given by Krishna. So that thought process, if we have that thought process that factually actually nothing belongs to us, then that at that mentality of renunciation, it comes up, right? Attachment lowers. Okay. So um now people generally have a tendency of thought process that, oh, sannyasa is a higher degree than others, right? We so sannyasa is better, you know now let's see what Krishna is saying in the next shloka. So Arjuna is saying, but isn't karma sannyasa better? Means again, renunciation. Again, Arjuna is asking this again and again so that we can discuss this again and again, and it can register with us also, right? Now, Krishna is saying only the ignorant say that Sankhya, which is analytical study of material world, or Gyan Yoga or Karma Sannyasa, yeah? All these and yoga, which is Karma Yoga, are different. Performing one of these completely, one attains the results of both. One who sees both of them on same level is the actual seer, right? So again, Krishna is repeating what he did in the yoga ladder section, right? That all these yoga ladder, the levels, these are not different levels. These are different means through which we can go to Krishna, right? So be it through the path of Gyan Yoga, Karma Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, everything takes us to Krishna. That's what Krishna is saying here. They are not different ladders. They are different rungs of just one same ladder. So anyone taking in any path, it can, but he highlights here, performing one of these completely, right? Completely. So fully, yeah, that can attain the result, and the result is going to Krishna. They are actually in the same levels. But what happens is, why Krishna is we also learned before that there are certain prerequisites, right, for Jnana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, which are difficult in today's world, right? Renouncing everything and going into the forest, we will tend to, our heart is not purified. We will tend to get, diverted, right, and fall down again. So both, Krishna is again highlighting both are the rungs of the same ladder, and they have the ultimate same end result, right? And the person who sees them both in the same level is the actual seer. Yeah. So what is Sankhya Yoga? It is nothing but Gyan Yoga or Karma Sannyasa. They renounce the work. If you remember the ladder, yoga ladder, so they are, they renounce work. right? Sankhya means analytical study of material world, right? Material body and soul. So understanding that we are not this body, we are soul, and what is the nature of the material world, right? Analysis of temporary material world, that's what it has, and leads to detachment, right? Once we understand, once the Gyan Yogis understand that this material world is temporary, and they detach, from the material activities. Yeah, such knowledge ultimately leads one to Krishna, right? Now, right, and then Krishna highlights again. Once he says both are equal, but he also mentioned that for Arjuna, karma yoga is better, right? Because he is a Kshatriya, right? So merely renunciation, just taking renunciation is difficult. That's what Krishna is saying. And this is actually the shloka, Rishmaji, which you read. So, Sanyasastu mahabhao dukkam aptum ayogatah yoga yukto munir brahma nachirena tikachati. So merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in devotional service of the Lord, cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay. So, Gyan Yoga, we learned in third chapter, if you remember, Gyan Yoga and Karma Yoga, they are interdependent. If someone is doing Gyan Yoga and just Gyani, but he doesn't realize Krishna, you know, he doesn't perform, he's not engaged in devotional service, then there is no point. There will be a fall down. Just by Jnana, you cannot attain Krishna, right? So, only way you can attain Krishna here is a Gyan Yogi who is engaged in devotional service. So the devotional service piece is most important to achieve Krishna. Just by being a Gyani, a philosopher, it will not take you. Yeah. So again, Krishna is that category of people are not actually the Gyan Yogis. It's a false sannyasa, right? We learned pretender also in third chapter. You will see many things correlated between third and fifth chapter, right? Because Krishna is further explaining actually here, right? He's again discouraging not to take false sannyasa, not to be a pretender. Yeah. So taking a sannyasa without having purification of heart or without understanding, Krishna's role, Krishna's position, it will not make him happy and it will not lead them to the ultimate path, right? It says here that dukkham aptum, what it gives, if they just renounce everything and they are not realizing Krishna, then all it gives them is dukh, so that's why it is very important that yes, this is the path, but the main, just renouncing will not help. It is unless you're not engaged. Yeah. That's why renouncing, but not with the work, but with the results of work, and engaging in devotional service. That's the path. Yeah. So, what is the key to real happiness? Mere sannyasa. Yeah. That is just detachment with matter, cannot make you happy. But karma yoga, which is attachment to spirituality, to devotional service, can quickly unite you with the supreme, the source of all happiness. We don't run away from problems, challenges, difficulties, but we run towards Krishna, which gives us happiness and freedom from troubles. This is very important. This is taken from the purport. So, we devotees, it's not that difficulties don't come in devotees' life. They don't run away from these problems, but they overcome for those problems because of why? Because of their dependency on Krishna. And we will see as we do the devotional practice, slowly we start developing a higher taste, and that higher taste of spiritual taste, which makes us slowly less inclined towards the material taste. And this is experiential, right? This is experiential. As we are moving more towards Krishna, which is making us get that higher taste. And if we are moving more towards Krishna, that means we are moving away from the material taste, right? Because Krishna is on one end and the material world is on the other, right? So that's why we should not focus always on running away from material things. It should be more about running towards Krishna. Naturally, the running away from the material things, detachment from the, not running away is not the right word, but detachment with the material things naturally comes as we start getting attached to Krishna. It's a natural phenomenon, right? So, so with that said, we'll move to the last section today, and then which is performing Nishkam Karma Yoga, frees one from bondage. You know? So Arjuna is still stuck, right? That he's saying that I still don't understand why one should work. You know, so our we learned that our what is our greatest enemy? Lust, right? And what this lust does to us, it makes us have the thought process of self-centered actions, right? Everything revolves around us, and we tend, because we are attached, right, and we tend to work only for self gratification, sense gratification. Yeah. Now we also learned that this lust can be subdued by what? By transcendental knowledge. Yeah. And how we get that transcendental knowledge? When our heart gets purified. And how will our heart gets purified? By performing work, our performing duties, prescribed duties, right? So Krishna will highlight now that actually performing work is very, very important, because this, our duty, performing our duty, actually helps us to get purified. And that is the prerequisite qualification for us to receive the knowledge, right? Now let's see. So we are going to talk about Nishkam Karma Yoga. Couple of slides as how we can practically imply this. Yeah. So Hari Krishna ji, will you be able to read this? Hari Krishna ji, are you around? Maybe we'll move to Kavya ji. Will you be able to?
Yes, Mataji.
There was internet connection problem issue. Shall I go? Hello? Hello?
Okay, Kavya ji, maybe we'll go ahead with you.
Okay. Nishkam Karma Yoga, shift your attitude from doership to divine. Eliminate feeling of I did it, I can only do it. We can't do anything on our own without God's sanction. There are many uncertainties in this world. Eliminate false ego and doership feeling while doing work as the faithful servant of God. Don't take any credit for the work done. Humbly surrender the reward to God. Hare Krishna.
Right. It's, how do you find it when you read this?
Yeah, we are nothing basically.
So it's, yeah. So here, what is Nishkam Karma Yoga? It is performing the devotional service without attachment to results, right? Now if we have to detach with these results, then we have to shift our attitude. We are attached to the results thing. Why? Because we think we are the doer. I did it, I need to get it back, I deserve it. That I is always with us, right? So first thing is we have to shift that attitude, that we are not the only factor, right? So eliminate the feeling of I did it, and only I can do it. That is also the other thing which we feel, right? We learned before also in third chapter, that triangle, if you remember, that shloka, prakriti kriyamanani, yeah, gunakarmani sarvashah. So it is only out of our false ego we think that we are the boss, we have control over everything, we are the decision makers. Yeah. And we learned how that triangle, right, that As a jiva, the soul only does what? Can anybody say? Soul only? We learned that triangle of soul, super soul, and material nature. So, what is the role of the soul? Only thing we do is desire. We only desire, and then the super soul, you know, grants it, and then material nature facilitates it, right? And we can, so the second point here is we can't do anything on our own without God's action. We learned that in third chapter, that triangle, right? Yeah. There are many uncertainties in this world. Well, we know we have all come out of COVID, how uncertain it was. We don't know what next moment is going to happen, right? Nothing is in our control. If we keep analyzing situations, it naturally will start understanding that actually nothing is within in my control, right? And that kind of yeah, that will eliminate our false ego when we understand it. So it eliminates our false ego and doership mentality. And rather we understand that everything is within Krishna's control, and we work in the direction of Krishna and as a faithful servant, right? Don't take any credit for your work done, right? We learned that famous shloka also, karmanyavadikaraste, right? 2.47, where Krishna again highlights the same thing, right? No, don't renounce work, and you're not the only one who you need to take the credit of the work, right? And humbly surrender to the God. Yeah. So this cycle will be again explained a bit more in fifth chapter. Yeah. So what should be our motivation for work? We learned that. We had that in third chapter as well. If we perform work, which is our prescribed duty, it leads to purification of heart. Purification of heart leads to awakening of the knowledge. It's like that a magnet which is rusted, sorry, a iron, sorry, which is rusted. you know the attraction towards magnet really is not there, but as the rust keeps coming off, the iron has the natural tendency to attract to the magnet, right? So as our heart gets purified, that rusting you know keeps thinning up, it reduces, and then we realize our natural tendency for Krishna. Okay. So, and the thought process arises that actually everything is done by Krishna only, right? And the thing is, it is our mentality that we keep ourselves very high, right? Nothing will, we feel that nothing moves without us. We need to be, if I'm not here at this situation, it wouldn't have happened, you know, this and that wouldn't have happened. So, but the thing is, you will also know from others that when you are not there, things did happen. They do happen. We see that situations in life, right? Nothing stops, the world continues, right? The show must go on, that's what we say. Whether we are or not there, things will happen. And just because we keep thinking without me it will not happen, we end up pressurizing ourselves, you know that nothing can move without us, and we tend to build that and keep working day and night to make things under our control, so we should and that pressure makes us work more, and eventually we keep that cycle on, right? So we should have the mindset clearly that when it comes to performing the prescribed duty, the main thing is purification of heart. We should work, and perform devotional practice for our own purification, not for the getting, not having the mindset that let me do this so that I can become famous, I can become proud of it, or people will look at me with such high regards. No, we have to perform that so that for our own purification, not for the other factors. Yeah? So and as we do spiritual practice, like I said, this thing will come down, the rust goes, and we revive our original state, and we get attracted to Krishna. Okay. So what should be again, like we discussed, we are not indispensable. Things will move even if we are not there, right? And I'm not helping God or others. right? That is also one of the things. I'm doing this, it will help. That's why this event happened. That's why this did. So any egocentric feeling of helping others should be totally eliminated. You know, and in fact, any help done by us, we should, if we keep thinking about it and contemplating, we'll feel proud. We should eliminate that. We should forget that as soon as possible. Yeah, and we are nothing but just instruments in Krishna's hand. And Krishna will say this to Arjuna in 11th chapter, that you know he is all those people in the battlefield. Krishna has already killed them. Krishna is not dependent on us. He has other means to get his work done, if not us. you know so he is not dependent on us. Rather, we should be dependent on him, right? We should be. And we'll see that Krishna states to Arjuna that all the people in the battlefield were already killed by him. It's just that he wanted Arjuna to be an instrument through which, the process. So if not, so he has many other means to do it. If by just a glance he can create universes, then we can imagine, right? What all he can do. Right. So, so overall, Nishkam Karma Yoga mindset, we have done this before. What work you do, I do God's work. That mentality, that attitude. What do you do with fruits of what you get? We offer it back to Krishna. How do we do? We do it with dedication, sincerity, and commitment. Right? Dedication, it's very important, right? Krishna is not saying that we should be lazy. Doing spirituality, you will see, we'll all see in journey that at times just starting into a process, it's easier, but consistency is the main thing. And that comes out only from dedication, sincerity, and commitment. If there is no consistency, we will not get there, right? So that's the key thing. What is our identity? We are servants of God. What do we expect from work? Whatever duties we do, what do we expect? Our mindset is to please Krishna and to get self purified, right? For our own purification. So the practical application here is one who is in knowledge, transcendental knowledge, understands his incompatibility with material nature, that it's temporary, right? And thus acts only for our own purification, not being attached to the results. Okay, so we'll move a bit faster here now. We are now going to see characteristics of a yoga yukta. Yeah, yoga yukta vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvan apina lipyate. Very very nice and important shloka. So one who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and he who controls his mind and senses is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. So we are talking here about characteristics of a yoga yukta. Yoga yukta or a karma yogi, the person who is engaged in devotional service, right? This is the characteristics. If a yoga yukta work, then how will he be? Because Arjuna said, right, how can we not be, how can we be liberated by performing work? So these are the characteristics we learned before as well, right? He will be a yoga yukta person is Vishuddhatma, means, he is pure soul. Yeah. Vijitatma controls his mind and senses. Jitendriya, right? Vijitatma Jitendriya. He has full control over senses and mind. Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma means he is dear to everyone and everyone is dear to him. Kurvan apina lipyate. Such man is never entangled. This word lipyate means not being entangled. Okay. Now we have further described, Krishna has further described in 8th and 9th verse about Jitendriya, the mindset, the doer yet the non-doer. Yeah. So a person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he's actually doing nothing at all. Yeah, because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their sense objects and that he's aloof from them. Yeah. So a yoga yukta may be seemingly doing everything, right? but he's clear. He may be doing same things, speaking, walking, eating, all of that activities. Yeah. But he has a clear mindset. He's clear that all these are nothing but the arrangement of Krishna and material nature. Yeah. So if someone remains in this consciousness, then he doesn't get attached or entangled. Yeah. If Karma Yogi knows he is not the doer, yet he does the action, right? A Karma Yogi knows that he's not the doer, it's Krishna and the his material nature, right? But he still does the action. For whom is he doing that action? For self, right? For his own purification. And Krishna will now explain, that such a devotee acts by for actually pleasing Krishna, for Supreme Lord, right? Let's see. So work for the Supreme with detachment. Reshmaji, will you be able to read this?
Yes, Mataji.
I can't hear you, Reshmaji, in case you have, because I can see you on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah. Lost you again, I think. Yeah, maybe Hari Krishna ji, if you can read it. There's still some issue with the audio.
Yeah, Mother, yes, Mother, I will go ahead. Work, works for the Supreme with detachment. Work for the Supreme with detachment. Brahmanya Adhyayah Karmani Sangam Tyatva Karoti Yaha Lipyate Nasa Papena Padmapatram Ivam Basa Bahasa. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is uh,
Untouched. By water. Yeah.
as the lotus feet is untouched by water.
Thank you. So, how should one work? So work for Supreme. So this person, Yoga Yukta, why do they perform still work? Because they perform it for Supreme. Yeah. So it's a beautiful shloka here where Krishna compares such a person like a lotus flower. They do everything for Krishna, Yoga Yukta people. And Krishna explains here comparison to lotus flower, lotus flower because lotus leaf, right? Why? Because showing us how we should live in this world. We should live in this world like a lotus flower. How? We know where the lotus flower grows, right? Where does it grow? Yes, in the muddy water, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just like a lotus flower, it is amid a contaminated environment, but still the lotus flower blooms without touching the water. The lotus leaf does not touch the water, right? Similarly, Krishna is saying we have to live in this material world, you know, where we will see there is a lot of contamination around us, but we should remain untouched by such contamination. And that's what Krishna is trying to tell to Arjuna, that in this Mahabharata war, they were, it's like a muddy water, right? There were so many crores of people who died, yeah, and so many, thousands of people who went missing, right? So it was undoubtedly a very bad surrounding, right? But Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to be like a lotus, yeah, to be amongst and just perform your duty untouched by the contamination, right? And we similarly, we, in our whole day, we will see we are around, work, our workplace, our family, friends, other things, it may be, sometimes contaminated, right? But we need to act like a lotus. We should not be touched by that contamination. Okay. So overall, performing work with attachment, what does it cause? Bondage. And the same work without attachment, you know or with detachment, causes liberation. So attachment, it's the attachment, right, which causes us bondage in this world and makes us undergo this birth, life and birth, that cycle again and again, right? It's not the work that causes bondage. We have to understand it. It's our consciousness, right, of doing that work. If we have the consciousness, that we want to do it for an outcome, then we are attached to it, right? So, why does a person who knows that he is a spirit soul and not the body and is thus detached still perform work? We just learned that, right? Why do they still perform work? For our purification, right? And 11th and 11th verse talk about the same. The yogis abandoning attachment act with mind, body, and intelligence. Yeah. And even with the senses, only for the purpose of what? For self purification. Yeah. And the 12th shloka, it says, the steadily devoted souls attain unadulterated peace. What is the outcome of this? You know, they they get shantim. The 12th shloka says, Shantim apnoti naistikam. They attain unadulterated peace because they offer the results of all the activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. Yeah. That same thing in the 11th shloka we see here. Sangam tyaktva shuddhe. Sangam means attachment. Tyaktva means renouncing. Atma shuddhe means we get purified. Yeah. So Sangam tyaktva Atma shuddhe. Renouncing this attachment, we will get purified. Okay. Now, just moving further, we have 13th, 14th, and 15th shloka. I'll not go in detail, but we have done this in third chapter as well. It talks about the role of soul, role of material nature, and role of the Lord. Yeah. So role of the soul, when the embodied living being, which is the soul, controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of nine gates. City of nine gates is nothing but our material body, neither working nor causing work to be done, right? It's the characteristic of soul. Our consciousness, it's pure, right? So mentally, if we renounce, all the results of the action, then it will be. So role of material nature is what? This embodied spirit, this is the soul. It is clearly mentioned by Krishna that it does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. So soul is not doing all this. All this is enacted by whom? By the material nature. That's the role of material nature. And what is the role of Lord? The Supreme Lord assumes anyone's, he doesn't assume, anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of ignorance, which covers their knowledge. So Lord is just, grant. He's not, we have to be clear. So the role of the soul is we initiate or we desire. Role of material nature is they are the facilitator. Role of the Lord is he sanctions. Okay. So the same what we did here in the third chapter, just putting it here to that it's clear. Oops. Yeah. So the jiva only desires. We desire something. And then the super soul verifies and he sanctions. They verify whether this jiva, Krishna verifies whether the jiva deserves this, to be fulfilled. And then he sanctions it. Once he sanctions, the material nature executes, means facilitate, yeah, to, to fulfill the jiva's desire. Okay. So that mentality, this is Muhammad Ali. um, he had the mentality that he is the greatest, right? We all have so he was the great, very famous boxing champion that time, right? Now, no, it was very difficult to defeat him, but because he thought he's the doer, right? He was really proud, right? He was the doer, he thought. So, but such a famous boxing champion, he got infected by Parkinson disease. And then what happened? The same person who thought he's the doer and for everything, he has things, everything under control. He couldn't even lift a cup of coffee, right? He and with that doership attitude, we all get that pride and we become self-centered. But what happened eventually, right? We understand it's not really under our control, right? So if we have that mentality of doership, that I have done it, then we get the mentality of being own, having that ownership, that we own all the results. What you get out of this is only I deserve the results. We get that ownership. And then we have the mentality of enjoyership eventually, that, well, I did it, I am the owner of it, you know the results are mine, so I should be the only person who should enjoy this, right? So with the doership comes the ownership and then the enjoyership, right? So we should let this doership mentality go and rather have the humble approach as a servant of God, right? Only in ignorance a person begins to believe that whatever good has happened is because of him or her. Yeah. So, and that he has the complete right over whatever results he has achieved. Okay. So this is the last shloka for today, which goes as Jnanena tu tad Ajnanam yesham nashitam atmanah tesham aditya vajnanam prakashayati tatparam. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So it is what we have again, we have touched base this before, when someone performs, you know, with this understanding of Nishkam Karma Yoga, then all the ignorance is destroyed. Like as soon as the sun appears, the darkness goes. Similarly, as soon as we get that transcendental knowledge, it enlightens us, right? And we understand. It reveals everything for us, right? So overall, in this section, it's very important to understand that Krishna is saying to Arjuna that, for him, performing Karma Yoga is better. Nishkam Karma Yoga. That is work, perform your duties, because only that will get you purification, right? And then it enlightens us with that transcendental knowledge. Yeah. And as a jiva or a soul, only thing we can do is desire. We can initiate a desire. Rest everything. That should clearly make us understand we are not the only doer. Only thing we are doing is desiring. Rest everything is taken, care by, we see that triangle, right? Super soul, grants, sanctions it, and material nature executes it, right? So with that, we end the session today. And maybe we will